The state of South Carolina is set to pass some new NIL legislation. And while I don't know that this bill specifically is going to change the entire collegiate sports landscape, it does point us in the direction things are going. This is where a lot of people are already saying it was heading. And I think this adds fodder to the fact we're probably moving to eventually players being employees. I think this is the next step. So, what is this bill? Let's talk about it. So, let me share my screen here. Okay. So the bill revises a 2018 bill in this South Carolina legislature. It does a couple things, but here are two big changes it makes. So first, it strikes a portion of the previous law that essentially tied NIL to academic success or activity, saying that they couldn't miss class, had to be in good academic standing. That's gone, or will be gone, assuming this passes and is signed by the Governor McMaster. So that would be gone, and replacing it is a note that the universities, if they have information about NIL, cannot share it. Right? It is not public information, so they can't just decide to share it on their own. So that is private information. So strengthening the NIL, giving the player more rights, it's less tied to academics there. And then I think the bigger deal here, and this is what I think is really impactful and really points to this moving towards eventually employment status. But sort of right now they're doing pay for play and pretending like they're not. And this is just being honest about it, right? So currently the law is compensation earned by an athlete for use of NIL must represent a genuine payment for NIL, not pay for play. Obviously, many of Clemson and South Carolina's rivals are paying players to play football, and they're using other businesses, they're using these collectives and boosters to pay the players for football, not really for true marketing activities. This is going to strike that and just say you can just have your collective just pay them. And then I think the biggest, maybe the most important, and I think the best part of this bill is what they add here. Before, and if you follow politics, this is a lot like the way that political candidates and their PACs have to work together. The political candidate cannot specifically tell the PAC what to do and cannot specifically work with them to frame up commercials and slogans and all of that. Technically, the PAC is separate from the candidate, but the candidate could give hints and work backdoors and drop footage, like B-roll footage of the candidate, which the PAC could then use in their commercials. So it's this weird backdoor, can't really work with them directly. That's how it is in the NIL space. The colleges, universities can't directly work with these collectives. The collectives can't directly work. They can't really work together. This says forget that. An institution of basically the university, an employee of the university, can work with third parties to arrange NIL deals. So they're throwing out this whole separation and letting schools work with third parties to arrange NIL deals, get kids paid, right? So it's gotten to the point where let's just be honest about it. And I think this is the next big step towards eventually employment where the schools just pay them directly. They're a player like Travis Etienne or Trevor Lawrence. They create so much value for the university to think that they should be compensated with a scholarship, sometimes just an in-state free scholarship, the same as every single other athlete, scholarship athlete in the school, is a little silly. The amount of value they create for the university, the community, is just so much different than someone on the rowing team, right? And there's nothing against these other teams. I'm not going to besmirch them. It's just a different world, and this is kind of acknowledging that. I think we're eventually headed, and so I think some of the downstream effects of this, eventually, this is becoming so much pay for play. I think you see the SEC and the Big Ten eventually start paying players directly, and perhaps the conferences ensure some sort of salary cap, some sort of even playing field within their conferences. And that's where the ACC and the Big 12 can't compete. When you're making half or a third, or we'll see how much further they fall behind in TV deals that go to the athletic department. As soon as the athletic department start being the ones to pay the players, the ACC and Big 12 can no longer compete. And that's why I think eventually we'll see the best schools from those conferences be forced to leave. Florida State obviously wants to get out as soon as possible. I'd love to see Clemson at least stick in the ACC for 2 more seasons to take advantage of the automatic bye they get in the 12-team playoff for winning the ACC, should they do that. But they essentially have to get out before it gets to employment status. Otherwise, they'll be non-competitive. And I think they're positioning themselves to join the Big Ten from everything I'm hearing. South Carolina doesn't want them. Florida doesn't want Florida State. I imagine Kentucky probably doesn't want Louisville. And it seems like the moves Clemson is making, focusing on research, focusing on adding all these women's sports, a lot of things that the Big Ten really likes. I think that's how I'm reading the tea leaves. It's not going to be, the 2025 football season, but it might not be that far after that. So I do think that's where things are headed. I love the old model. I enjoy the old model, but where it is now is broken. You can't go back. Let's go ahead and move forward and fix it and take this above board and call it what it is. And if it's minor leagues, I'm still going to watch it. I'm going to love it. And I'll probably enjoy it more than the NFL because it's still a great product. So I think this is probably a good law. And last bit here, and before I forget, if you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel. We're over 800 subscribers. So thank you so much to everyone who's already done that. Really appreciate it. Don't forget to comment and to like this video as well. It's really helped it grow. But last thing before we get out of here, it's interesting that Shane Beamer from the SEC, obviously South Carolina, and Clemson, Clemson's head coach, Dabo Swinney, were both at the State House advocating for this. Dabo Swinney catches a lot of flack for being behind the times and too traditional and all this stuff about NIL. But there he was advocating for this. I've really started to come around to his approach on this is we're not trying to buy players. We're going to play by the rules, but we're going to try to advocate for rules that are fair to players. We're not always going to, Clemson's not going to outbid Ohio State and Georgia. So if Dabo Swinney tries to play this like they are, it's eventually going to be a losing game. So to make a niche where they're paying their players fairly, but it's not all about that is where Clemson needs to live. I think Dabo Swinney's starting to see that. So that's been really encouraging. So with that said, leave your thoughts in the comment section about this bill and the future of college football. Thanks for watching. And as always, go Tigers.